Before we start this episode, I would love to take a minute to tell you about something new and really exciting that I've been working on. I have just launched a pay what you can afford sponsorship opportunity for Show Up and Be Heard. This isn't your typical corporate sponsorship package. It's all about supporting a community of women building businesses on their own terms, whilst genuinely helping you get your business seen in the process. You'll get loads of visibility across the podcast, social media, and my email list, with ad spots, social media shout outs, and so much more. It is all designed to help you connect with the amazing women in my audience and grow your business. And the best part, like I said, it's totally accessible for businesses of all sizes, thanks to the flexible pay what you can afford model. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, I would love to hear from you. Head to www.beheardsocials.com/podcast to find out more and apply. In the meantime, though, let's get back to the episode that you came for. In today's episode, I am talking to the wonderfully joyful Lizzy Parsons all about time management, business ownership, and the importance of understanding what really matters both in your business and your life. This conversation is one of those that feels like a big exhale. Honestly, I absolutely loved every second of it. Lizzy has a brilliant way of making you feel seen, understood, and reminded that you're not doing it all wrong. You are just human. We talk about everything from coping with chaotic mornings and finding your focus again, to what it actually looks like to build a business that fits your life instead of trying to fit your life around your business and what people tell you that you should be doing. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by your to-do list, pressured by social media to go faster or to do more, or just needed someone to say that you don't have to do it all, then this episode is for you. So let me tell you a little bit more about who Lizzy is and what she does. Lizzy Parsons is a founder of the Fantastic Foundations, where she helps small business owners feel confident, focused, and in control of their own journeys. Through her flexible approach, Lizzy offers a mix of one-to-one support, done-for-you tasks, and a low-cost community so her clients can choose the type of help they need to reach their goals within their budget. She knows what it's like to juggle all the moving parts and wants every business owner to feel supported, inspired, and capable of building something that truly works for them. Whether it's getting clear on the next steps, staying consistent, or creating a business that actually works, Liz is there to guide business owners through the ups and downs of creating a business of their dreams affordably. With a focus on compassionate accountability and a ton of practical advice, Lizzy is all about helping people run their businesses with ease and intention. No overwhelm required. But before we dive in, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to tune in to Show Up and Be Heard, the podcast that exists to help women like you simplify your business and your life so that you can stop feeling so overwhelmed. I am your host, Becky McAvoy, owner and founder of Be Heard Socials, and I am an award-winning social media marketer and international speaker who specialises in content strategy and organic growth on social media. Through this podcast, as well as my own social media, email community, and my award-winning membership, the Boss Your Socials Club, my mission is to cut through the noise to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand for businesses that can't afford to outsource or who don't have the teams required to implement most of the advice that is being given to them. So if you want to cut through the noise and BS and get practical, actionable advice tailored specifically to make social media marketing accessible and easy to understand, or if you want to be part of a supportive community where women entrepreneurs can feel connected and inspired to achieve their dreams, then keep listening because you are in the right place. To get more tips like the ones you hear in this podcast, make sure you join my email community through the link in the show notes. Right then, let's get started with this week's episode. Hi Lizzy, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's sunny. I am loving it. So it's all kind of like, it's all happening today.
I like it. And we've just been having a chat before we started recording, and I feel like the vibrant vibes are there. Like, yeah, I'm feeling it today.
We're just like, yay! Whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah, which is a good place to be. It's a good place to be. I'm also very excited to have you on the podcast because, and I was saying this before we started recording, I reached out to you to ask if you would come on the podcast. And the reason that I did that is because you had gone live. So I'd followed you for quite a long time, actually. I think.
Yeah.
It's and liked your content, and I think we'd maybe had a couple of conversations, but nothing too big or in depth or anything like that. But you went live and you were talking about time management tips, which is a bit of what we're going to talk about today. And I loved your live. And afterwards I messaged you and I was like, oh, I'd love to talk about that on the podcast. Would you like to come on? And I just feel like it's the very essence of Show Up and Be Heard. Is like you put yourself out there and went live, and then I saw it and was like,
and then it just happened. It's a strange one. I think for me, talking about time management, the decision to do lives versus make videos was just about time. I couldn't be bothered to edit the video. So I was like, you know what? I have something to say. I can just show up and say the thing. It doesn't have to be like fancy, and I don't have to have all these like amazing cuts and all of this stuff happening. I can just say the thing that I want to say and let people have it.
Yeah,
So that was
and I
it.
love that. Yeah, and I love that as well, because again, that's what I'm all about. Is like it's not about perfection. It's about getting stuff out there. It's about doing it in ways that work for you, and that's what I love
Absolutely.
actually. Which is why I reached out to you about you chatting about time management, because it was very practical and very, like you hear lots of stuff. It's like, right, well, if you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and yeah, can't imagine anything worse. It was very real. And that's why I was keen to chat to you. So that's hopefully, well, we said today that we're going to be chatting a little bit about time management, maybe some tips on planning an organisation, or sort of the way
Cool.
you do it. I know you do it in your business for people as well. And some practical, the really big thing for me is like having some practical approaches that are realistic and that actually
Cool.
work for people.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm glad you're in agreement, because that's hopefully what we're going to be talking about.
It's
But
gonna be fine.
it's funny again, because I love the chats that I have with people before recording, because it really like gives me a bit of a like feel of how it's going to be. And I think the last thing you said before we hit record was, this is going to be an adventure.
Absolutely. And if it isn't that, what's the point?
Exactly. And if it's not fun, what's the point? That's like, what's the point in life if you're not having a little bit
What
of
are we
fun?
doing here? What are we doing here, friends?
Exactly. So before we get into all of the like the chat about what we're going to be
Mm-hmm.
talking about, do you want to tell the people who are listening a little bit about your story in terms of how your business came about and how you became a business owner?
So I had never had any intentions of being a business owner. I was a civil servant for, in the end, just shy of 15 years. That was a very long time. I did a lot of different, very random roles in the civil service, but I enjoyed it. I was super, it was a real point of pride to me at that time. However, my daughter has a cognitive disability. She's also autistic. And in order to get her from where she was, which was a mainstream setting, into a specialist setting, which was the appropriate thing to do. However, as anybody who has a child who is, not quite in the neurotypical box, doing anything like that is almost impossible without resorting to some level of like litigation. So we went through an SEN tribunal, and then we went through my foster dad being diagnosed with cancer, and then literally within a matter of days he passed away. And I came out of that process just completely empty. I would describe myself as like a hair's breadth away from a full-scale breakdown. At which point I was like, do I want to be doing this? Is this my future? Is this all that I'm going to have? Is this all that I'm going to be? Tra-la-la. So I'd been running the business as a side hustle. And it had been fine. I hadn't necessarily been pushing the business in that way because it wasn't my full-time thing. It was just like, this is a place where I can kind of challenge myself. I can have a little bit more joy. I can be in a bit more control over the work that I'm doing. But then the organization were like, oh, if you want to leave, we'll pay you. I was like, show me the money, babes. So I got my coins. I made a run for it. And that's how I moved into the business full time. And, I'm super grateful to my husband because he was and is my biggest cheerleader. And I was like, oh, this is a massive risk because, that's a job really, as long as you don't do too many bad things or go too far, like too much of a shenanigan, it is pretty much a job for life, right? So to kind of like give that up to go into this, which is full scale unknowns, he was just like, babe, we've got to do it. We've got to make it happen. And so that's why I'm here. That's how that happened.
I absolutely love so much of that, because like, I think obviously there were some like really difficult things in that. And like you saying about your foster dad and all that kind of stuff, and life throws us challenges
Mm-hmm.
with your daughter. And I'm not going to call that a challenge, because
Oh no,
like,
let's call it what it is. It is a challenge. Like, she is not the challenge. The system and trying to get the system to do what it should be doing, that part is the challenge.
Yeah, and and I like that, because I suppose it's like, I want to be not careful in the language that I use, but I do think it's important, the language that we use. But
Exactly.
like you said, like I really like that, because that's what I didn't want to say, is like she was a challenge. But you're right, because I've got lots of friends who have been through, well, pretty much anybody that I know that has dealt with similar things that they need to deal with. It's been a challenge, and the system
Yeah,
is
it's
so
very hard
hard.
work.
Yeah, but you can easily take that and, I don't know, make it a really bad thing or a negative thing. But I love that you sort of went, like, because it's kind of, I suppose it's a little bit what I did when I left. Well, at the point I was deciding to leave my employed job, I love that you asked yourself the question, was like, do I even want to be doing this? Because it's like, it's quite a hard question to ask yourself, isn't it?
It's really hard. And I think it's one of those questions where when you ask it of yourself, and in order for you to kind of, for you to get an honest answer, you have to actually ask yourself some really introspective questions. And that's really around your values and, you know, what you perceive to be your purpose. And I'm just like, my purpose, and I've always felt like that, my purpose was to help people have the best version of whatever it was I was trying to do in that role. And I didn't feel that the role that I was in at that time was allowing me to do that. So I was like, well, no, because Lizzy, this is your purpose, and here is your value set, and you're doing none of these things, and you're not even delivering that. So why are we here?
Yeah.
What is this? Other than collecting my coins and paying my bills, I was like, this is not doing it for me, loves. I need to get out of it.
But it's quite a, and that's what I mean about asking the question. It's like it's like, you can be a bit scared of the answer if you really genuinely ask yourself the answers that you dig into. Like, there's surface level answers, isn't there? But when you dig into it, it's like, it can be quite scary, like what you're going to find by asking.
Exactly, because what can happen is you can come out of that questioning period almost a different person. And then people are like, oh, you've changed. And you're like, that's the point.
You know what? I need to get a video clip of that for socials, because the hair flick was literally the dream answer to that question. But you're right, like, you do change, and you do it, and it's scary asking yourself those questions. But also, I think you can ask yourself those questions and then go, no, this isn't what I want, but then do nothing about it. And the fact that you then do something about it is amazing as well.
I think the experience of not doing something about it was like a slow slide into misery that I didn't notice. I didn't notice it because I was inside it, and that was like my normal existence. And then I made the decision to leave. And then I was like, oh my God, it's only X many days until I'm like, you know, exiting. And I just got happier and happier and happier and happier and happier and happier as that day came closer. And then I was like, although this is like the most scary thing I've ever done, and I feel super, super nervous about doing it, I feel happier. So even if I've only bought myself like a couple of years of happiness, I'm going to take that.
Do you know what? I feel like I actually planned this, which puts me across as a professional. I recorded a couple of solo episodes yesterday, and one of them was on how I know when to make a change or when to pivot, or, you know, when to make a big decision. And it's going to come out the week after this episode. And it's a lot of sort of what you're saying there is like, and it is that, I mean, I'm not going to give, otherwise I'll have to do another solo episode if I say it all here. But it's sort of that. And again, we were talking about this before we started recording, was what's the worst that can happen? And it's like, you know what, if you ask yourself those questions, if you'd tried this and it didn't work out, what was the worst that was going to happen? You go back and you get a job or whatever. But actually it did work out, and look at you now, like 4 years down the line.
So it's a weird one, because I think with the business, I was talking to a client the other day, and she was like, oh, you know, it's really great having your own business because you get to make all the decisions. And I was like, aha. However, on the flip side, that's probably going to be your biggest challenge as a business owner, is the fact that you get to make all the decisions. But not only do you get to, you have the responsibility of making all of the decisions. And sometimes that's super hard because you have lots and lots of decisions to make, and it can feel quite overwhelming, especially if those decisions kind of almost create different like avenues, and you're like, well, if I did that, but then that happened and then that happened, oh no. So that is it. It has been a complete shift for me in terms of that, in terms of be like, you know what, I don't want to play today, so I'm not going to.
Yeah. Well, I think it's as you're talking, then it's like, yeah, it's brilliant you can make all the decisions, but also you can't blame anybody else because you have made the
Correct.
decisions.
It's all on you, my friend.
Yeah.
And so I was talking to her about that, and I was like, look, the reality is all of those decisions will potentially take you down a slightly different avenue. However, the thing that we must always hold onto is our, like, what I refer to as your direction. So in your business, you have your mission, your values, your vision. Those things set the direction for the business. And so for me, that's what I go back to. If I have a decision, I'm like, does this align with these things? That makes it a lot easier to say yes or no. And that goes for decisions, that goes for opportunities, that goes for options, that goes for offers, all the things. For me, I go back to that direction and I'm like, well, it doesn't. So that's an easy no. Actually, thanks, but no.
Yeah. And I love that. And I suppose it flows us quite nicely into some of the conversation that we're going to have today, because it's around sort of, like you're responsible for the decisions, but also the decisions you make, you need to be able to implement and do, and and you need to manage your own time to actually make stuff happen. So how do you approach time management in your business?
So I ran the business, like I said, as a side hustle, alongside at one point a full-time job. So what I did and delivered in the business when I had a full-time job versus now is completely different. And so my thing is always about, especially when it comes to time management, is starting with a reality check. Because a lot of the time we get ourselves, I want to say caught up is probably the best way of describing it, because we see other people who have businesses that are like online service providers, and we see all of the ways in which they show up, all of the things that they're doing and delivering and sharing and creating and blah, 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 blah. All of that's wonderful. However, what we then don't do is, because they don't necessarily give us the full story, we say, oh, well, we should be able to do exactly the same thing as this person is doing, right? Because we're both running online businesses, blah, blah, blah. What that person is not telling you is how many people are sat behind their business, because very often, especially if it's a larger business, there will be a number of people sat behind that business. And they don't say that. They don't then also tell you the high level of like tech stack investment that they've made in order to give them the appearance of appearing everywhere all at the same time. So that reality check is about giving context to what is actually possible in the time that you have. So my thing is always like, my focus is helping people to build a business that they love in the time that they have. And so that reality check has to come first, because nothing else will work if you are still in that mindset where you're like, well, I've got 6 hours, but I need to deliver 13 hours of work. Like, you've already failed and you haven't even started day one.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my starting point with people. But then my next thing is also not really time management based, but it's also about just giving like reality to your situation. So as I said, my daughter is autistic. How her brain works is completely not anything that I've encountered before. The things that appear logical to her do not appear logical to me at all. However, when she explains it, I'm like, you've got a point there. I don't know how this happened, but you've got a point, my love. So you crack on, you carry on doing what you're doing. So my other thing that I talk to people about is really about how your brain works. And so whether you're neurodiverse or not, you will know as a person what works for you and what doesn't. You will know kind of like things that you've tried before that everyone was like, oh yeah, do this thing, it's amazing, it'll be perfect, and you'll be like some sort of like a, you know, super time creation guru type human, and then you try it and you're like, this feels like hell. Then it's not for you. It's not for you. And so that for me is the other thing. It's like reality check, how does my brain work? And then we go from there, because all of the other stuff will be decision based. All of the other stuff is decision based, but you've got to have that bit first to do any of the other bits.
And I think that's really funny because it reminds me of that thing. I've just seen it going around social media somewhere, which pretty much sums up me. Like, I don't know why I regularly buy planners like I'm going to wake up a completely different person.
Today, I'm going to...
my life.
Exactly. The thing is, right, what I will always say to people who do stuff like that is, that to me is actually really positive, because it shows intention. Like, you want to do this thing, right? Great. Love that. That energy is exactly the energy you need to have. However, what we don't want to do is say to ourselves, okay, I'm going to buy this planner, and this planner is like 26 questions to answer every day, and it's going to take me at least half an hour to fill it in, but I'm going to do it. Like today, I'm going to be so hard on myself. I'm going to make myself do it. And then you do the first day, and then maybe do the second, and maybe if you're really good and you like really punish yourself, and I use that word very purposefully, you punish yourself, you get to Wednesday, and then you're like, I cannot be doing with this business. So this is why I'm like, look, that energy, great. That you think, you feel to yourself, I want to get better at this, great. However, doing that is not going to solve that problem, because fundamentally that thing is not built for you.
Yeah, and it's finding what works for you. And that's what I love. So there was so much of what you just said that I loved, but like, I just think the reality thing, and funny enough, so I've moved to planning my goals from January to December, because that's when everyone told me I should do it. And now I'm planning them the last 2 years. Well, This is the second year I'm doing it. It's April to April. So it fits in with my financial year as a business, but also it fits in with my energy and my vibe. Apparently
100%.
Well, apparently it also fits in with the universe. And I mean, if that's true,
I love that.
So I think it's something to do with spring equinox. The amazing Heather, who is in my membership, told me that. And I love that as well, because I feel like if the universe is on my side,
then it's all good things.
But I've moved to doing that. So I've recently been planning out my goals. And one of the things that I was doing was mapping out what I needed to do and then putting it into my calendar. And I was like, oh, Becky, you've planned like 3 years worth of work here. And it's because it's coming from a good place. Like, I'm excitable, I'm ambitious.
And we are all in that place. So all of us do it. We sit down, whether it is the start of your year, whether it's the start of your quarter, even I do it. However, I know myself well enough now to know that I'm going to plan too much. And so at the end of the first month of that quarter, I go back and do a process. I refer to it as a strategic reset. But basically, after having, you know, you've kind of gone through 4 weeks, and then you've only got 8 left for your quarter. So it's like, well, actually, Lizzy, all this stuff, this was a lovely idea. However, reality check time. This needs to be moved back a quarter. And it's not, it is done without emotion. It is done without shame. It is done without guilt. It is just a part of the process, because I know myself. I am over optimistic at the start of a quarter. And all of these things that we learn about ourselves, what we can do is, I always refer to it as setting up for success. So when you plan, you are setting yourself up for success. And that's a part of my process, because I know I'm going to be over exuberant. I give myself a month, and then I'm like, no, this is not a real thing. And then all of these things get chopped off and they get moved to the next quarter. And then I have a list that's much more realistic.
Yeah, and also it's one of those things, isn't it, that you have to like. So one of the things you spoke about in your live was around like why your home context is important, and it's a
Yep.
bit like I went through a phase where, I'd set all these goals, and I technically had the time to do it in terms of like my working hours. But
Hmm.
then it would come to it, and I'd be like, oh well, the kids were off sick. Oh well, this had happened. That happens all the time. Like that doesn't
Yep.
change. And if it does, like if I miraculously go through a term where something doesn't happen, I can go, oh, do you know what? I'll do that now.
Correct.
But it's learning. I think one of the best things for me was learning and embrace, like accepting my reality and enjoying my reality and giving myself space in my calendar because things happen. Like at this stage of
Hmm.
life, this stage of parenting, you haven't got the hours you think you have. And actually, if you find yourself with more hours, that's a blooming joy. But I do exactly what you do, where it's like, okay, I actually give myself the sort of freedom to go plan everything you want, go for it,
Yeah.
live your best life, because it gets all your good ideas out, but
Hmm.
then go, right,
Be
you
full
can't do that.
ambition.
Yeah. And then look at it and go, right, what are the things that are going to move my business forward quickest, or what are the things I'm going to
Mhm.
enjoy the most, or whatever, and then plan out where I'm going to do that
Yeah.
and when I'm going to do it. The other thing that you said that I really like, and I think is a really important thing to pick up on, is kind of learning to ignore. And it's like social media, like I love social media, obviously I do social media, it's brilliant for so many things, but it can have a negative impact on our mental health, and
Hmm.
comparison really comes in. And I hate all of the stuff that you was talking about where people aren't, and it's why I try, and I know you do the same on your socials, to be really transparent if I'm doing something, of sharing like the highs and the lows of it, and
Hmm.
actually sharing like the behind the scenes of it as well, of like, this is how many hours I worked, or I've done a lot
Yeah.
of late nights or whatever. Because I think you can see, and the standard one that you see all the time is like, you can earn six figures, or you can earn your 5 grand, 10 grand months, whatever you want to earn. And you
Oh,
can, you absolutely can. But I was like, but tell me what it took to get there, like, and what was your profit?
yeah.
Because I don't just want to know what you
Yeah,
earned,
yeah,
I want
yeah.
to know.
What? So how much did you spend to get there, and how much
Yeah.
did you sacrifice to get there? So I was talking to really good long-term client of mine, absolutely flip and adore her. And she was talking about like it's a person that works in her industry. He's like a big name in her industry. And he was talking about, about like other people's time management and like how they're like doing it wrong, blah, blah, blah. And obviously she came to me and she was talking to me about that. And I was like, listen, I'm going to say something to you, and I really want you to hear me when I say this. The difference between you and him is that he has a wife. And she was like, what? And I was like, listen, he has a wife. So when he's talking about getting up at 5 a.m., having this amazing routine where he goes for a walk for an hour and he does his gym session and blah, 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 his wife is the person at home facilitating that. Okay. So she facilitates his ability to deliver at the level that he does. And this is not to bash him or anybody. However, that's the bit that we have to have a reality check with ourselves over, because fundamentally, I feel this very strongly. If I had my own wife, I could be prime minister. That is how confident I am about the impact of having somebody else there that full time facilitates my greatness. Like, that to me, top tier. That is what I aim for. If I could afford my own wife, I would 100% have one. Like, I make no bones about that, and I will tell anybody who wants to listen. And she was just like, "Oh my God, Lizzy, I've never considered that." And I said to her, not being funny, when he's out doing all of this stuff, his wife is the person who's getting the kids sorted out for school, getting them to school, the person who's doing packed lunches, doing like all of this stuff happens outside of him. And that again is not to bash anybody's like home situation or make anyone feel bad, but that is it. So I said, what you are trying to do is compare yourself to somebody who has a replica of you.
Yeah, and it's all that same.
Not going to work, is it?
It's the same as, like we don't have the same hours in a day as Beyonce. Like, there's that whole thing that went around, isn't there? But like, And you're right. Like, it's not about, I mean, that could send me off on a whole soapbox rant, because there's
Oh,
absolutely
100%.
there's absolutely a whole feminism thing in there, and women and men and whatever. But also, even if that, you know, like you said, not to bash anyone, that could be by choice. Like you said earlier about your husband being your biggest cheerleader. And I feel very fortunate and very blessed that I'm in the same position. My husband is, and I don't like describing him like this because he's a dad, but he is very hands-on. We very much share
100%.
what we do.
This
And
is a team sport.
yeah,
It is a
100%.
team sport.
And sometimes he does the lion's share, sometimes I do, depending on what we've both got
Mm-hmm.
going on. We are very much a team. But also, sometimes you have to look at it and go, it's not even about, oh, if I had that, I could go off and do this. I don't actually want that. I want to be present for my kids right now. So, like, not everybody's like that, and that's not the right thing. But for me, it's like he could turn around to me and go, it's all right, you carry on working. I'll go to the school assembly next week. I'll be like, no, hang on a minute.
No, I'm not. We're not
Yeah.
going to do that.
So I
I've
think,
got to, you know, I'm going to be there front and center, because when she's looking for my face, I want her to see me there. That's important.
and I think it's like, it's not always because we have to. It's because, lots of the time it is because we have to, but sometimes we want to as well. And I've had to have some really honest conversations with myself about, like, actually, if I want to do all of these things, I can't do all of these things. And it's that quote, I think it might have come from Oprah, but it's you can have it, of course you can have it all, you just can't have it all right now. And
Yeah,
it's like,
you can't. I always say to people, you can't have it all at the same time,
yeah,
because fundamentally, and again, this comes back to the beginning part of our conversation, where you're like, well, this is my value set, this is what I want, this is my purpose in life, this is what I want to, this is where I want to spend my energy, and everybody's is different. Like, I saw something not that long ago online where this guy was like, oh, you know, basically, you, in order to get to where he was, he basically sacrificed having family time, like the whole lot. So he basically missed almost 5 years of his children's existence in order to get his business to like this, like super duper multi-million-pound company, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, cool story, bro. I don't want that. I don't want that, because the reality is this: no matter how much money you get, you can't buy back 5 years of time. You can't buy back 5 years of like really in-depth, close, beautiful relationship. You can't buy that back, no matter how much money you make.
Well, and also I feel like I had this moment last year. Like, you hear a lot of people talking about, like, financially, I'm not going to call them successful people, because people can be successful in different ways,
Exactly.
but financially successful people, like very rich people that have made a lot of money from their business, talking about, like, if they could go back, you know, they wouldn't work so hard and that kind of thing. And it's like, okay, but can you acknowledge that you got to where you got to by sacrificing that? So don't talk to people like me about, like, you can do it, but, like, and, you know, it's not wrong to sacrifice it even, but you have to be comfortable with that decision. And this is going to sound really awful, but, like, a lot of the people here who are talking about that are putting their kids through therapy now, like, and it's like all the sort of big
because you missed so much of that chapter. You don't know the person that they've grown into. Like, you don't know them and they don't know you, right? I think the thing for me with stuff like that, with that kind of, like, you know, I sacrificed everything to build this business, I think it's very I always find myself restraining myself from rolling my eyes when I hear those conversations, especially going back to the point you just made. It's very easy to sit there in a multi-million-pound house with all this money in the bank and go, I wish I didn't work as hard as I did. It's very easy, because to me, money is options and opportunities. That's all it is. And once you get to a certain point, the decision to sacrifice your life to make more money, that's on you. Like, because nobody forced you. You decided that that is what you wanted. And I'm glad for you, because you set yourself that goal. You did the hard yard, because make no bones about it, it is hard. You did the hard work. You decided you were going to not do this in order to do this, and you made it. And that's great. However, at what cost? And I can't allow the cost to be my child's mental and psychological security. I can't allow that to be the choice.
And I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge as well, because it's easy to sit there and say, you know, like, oh, prioritize your children, when there are going to be some, like, you've got to earn money to pay, you know, mortgages,
Everyone's got bills.
yeah, and all that stuff. But you're right, it gets to a certain point where it's like, no, you just want more money. Like, and that, again, that's
And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. But I also think, taking it away from, I know we are going off in a little bit of a tangent from what we were talking about, which, you know, we spoke about before we started recording. I think it's a good conversation. But even, you know, we're talking a lot about parenting in this, but I think that I've had that this year. So for the last however many years, I've gone, right, my priority this year is my health. Right, I want to do this, that and the other. But my reality was, so like, I wanted to exercise, but this year for the first time I've gone, right, okay, I want to exercise 3 times a week. And I'd said that previously. My husband travels quite a lot for work, so he goes away quite a lot. He can be here for long periods of time, and then he can go away loads in a short period. And I'd plan in these exercises and then go, oh, for God's sake, like, he's traveling again, when that's literally his job. Like, so it's not new news that he might.
However, it's like, oh, okay, well, I'd planned it to go in this slot here, so if I can't do it in that slot, I cannot do it at all. I cannot possibly.
When it's like, and if I plan it in a slot where, when he's away, I can't do it, then I'm going to always be inconsistent, because he goes away quite a lot. So I realised, so basically this year I was like, right, if my health is actually my priority, which it needs to be for my age and all kinds of different, I mean, anyway, but definitely for my age, I need to exercise in school hours. And if I'm going to exercise in school hours, that gives me less working time. So I've since sort of like last September, I've cut down now to a sort of 3.5 day working week. And I've consistently exercised 3 times a week for about 4 months now. But I had to make that conscious decision, and I'm earning less because I'm working less and different things, and that's fine. But I was like, right, so this isn't even about parenting. I mean, it is about my kids, because I want to be healthy for my kids and all that thing. But this is about me and what I want. It's like, right, I want to be fitter. I want to be healthier. And if I want to use the word, if I want to set that as a goal, I need to make time for it. So I think, you know, like, a bit of that was accepting my reality to go, right, well, you need to do it in school hours then. And that cuts at least 2 days a week out across the week. And you can make a decision to do that or not do that. But yeah, so I just
finding where your cutoff point is, in terms of, right, this is the amount of money that is comfortable for me to bring into the business to do all the things that I want to do, be that now, be that future, all of that stuff. And then any more than that, it's my decision. So at this cutoff point, actually, I don't have to do any more than that. And that's okay. We don't have to always be pushing and striving and focusing on more. To me, success feels like happiness in this household, joy in this household, calm in this household, being able to be present for my little lady, having time with my husband. Those are things that are, to me, that's what success feels like. The money thing is kind of like there, but it's not my priority. It facilitates the happiness that I want to have.
Yeah, and also it's a bit, I'm sure almost certain it's going to be the same in your house, because I'm convinced it's the same in pretty much every house. But if the mum is happy, everybody's happy.
And that's the thing, though. There are studies that show that maternal happiness is basically going to have the most profound impact on your child's ability to form relationships, have good relationships, live in a kind of like happy and contented situation. And you're just like, okay, cool. So this is super, super important. Let's crack on with that.
And if it's important, if it's a priority, we actually have to make that
it happen. We have to do the things.
I mean, the other thing that's done for me, which kind of like bringing us sort of back into time management a little bit, the other thing that I found really interesting since doing that is I realised how much I was doing that was work and was pushing the business forward, but that wasn't paid work, and I didn't need to be doing. And I've really looked at, because I've cut down to 3 days a week. It's like, right, what am I actually spending my time doing? How many hours a week or a month or whatever is on paid work. So where I'm actually delivering something to my members or clients, and then what am I doing around that? So like the podcast was one of them. The podcast isn't like a paid work. It's like a passion project. I love it.
Yeah.
It takes up a lot of time. It's like, right, okay, so I don't want to get rid of that. I still need to fit that into those 3
Mm-hmm.
days. But there was some stuff I looked at and I was like, you don't need to be emailing every single week.
No.
Like, you can cut that down to once a month. You don't have to be putting out as many social posts as you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be doing this stuff. So it made me really look at where I was spending my time. And it wasn't that I was just sat on my chair doing nothing. I was doing all good things like that help business and whatever. But it was like, right, okay, but some of that I can cut back. So what can that be?
What is that stuff? And so I always talk to people about we shouldn't be doing busy work. We should be doing critical work. And that is even more important if you are time strapped, either by choice and design, which is obviously your situation, or circumstances. And so for those people who, for example, most of the people that I work with are mums, it's my preference. I just love them. But because most of the people that I'm working with are mums, their ideal is to be able to work within the school day. That's their ideal. And so I'm like, okay, cool. You want to work just in that time slot? That's not an issue. What we do have to do then is we have to go down to a critical list rather than if I had an all the time in the world list. Because once you go from the all time in the world to a critical list, the deliverables are much clearer. The other thing that it does is when you reduce the time that you have, you tend to faff a lot less because you don't have the option. There isn't all of this like ethereal, like spare time. It goes, you're like, this needs to get done now. No messing around. So that also helps.
Because I think it's important, isn't it, to decide what really needs your attention and what really needs doing. So I do it. It's pretty much the same thing, but the way that I swear by Asana. I love Asana. And I have a brain dump list in there and I have a to-do list in there and whatever.
Yeah.
But I have a to-do list and then I have a must do and could do. And at the beginning of the day, or sometimes it's like at the beginning of the week, I move over the stuff that I must do and have to do and stuff that I could do. And 9 times out of 10, my must do list is actually pretty small. Like it's
absolutely. And it should be small on purpose, because what we should get ourselves into the habit of is, and all of us will go through this process one way or another, whether we like it or not. You have to get yourself to a point where you understand when you set a task list for the day, you need to understand how many things can actually go on there reasonably. Because some people are like, I'm going to set 10 things, I'm going to do these 10 things, and you get 4 things done. And then you get to the end of the week and you realize that actually your magic number is 4. So for me, my magic number is 6. I can set myself 6 things to do and I can pretty much guarantee I will clear all 6 of those things. Any more things, it's not going to get done. But that's practice, isn't it? It's like doing it and then it not working and doing it again and it not working. And then you go, oh, the reason it's not working is because I'm not working with it. I'm trying to kind of like come up with this random number out of the sky that bears no resemblance to the time and the challenges that I'm up against.
Yeah. And also, I think it's quite good to look at like the could do, because like with my could do list, some things have been on there for like over a year, and it's just because I've had an idea about something. It would be nice to do, and I'd like to do it at some point. I don't want to forget it, so it's on that list. But sometimes I might. So generally, I have Mondays, Wednesdays off now, but sometimes I work a Wednesday afternoon because I just feel like it, and I like it to be on my business rather than in my business. If I just fancy working on something, and I go to that could do list, and I could tick off about 10 different things on there because they're like 5-minute jobs, but they are not important. So I mean, they are important, but they're not critical.
They're not critical.
Yeah,
they're not critical.
But it can make me feel really good because I'm like,
because you finished Wednesday, you've ticked a load of stuff off, and you're like, oh, I'm a legend. I'm a legend. And so then you sit down on Thursday morning, and you're like, you know what? I did so many good things yesterday. I'm a winner. Does that make sense? And being able to tick stuff off your list, that is super important from a brain perspective, because it's like, no, this brain, this person, we get stuff done. And if you get into a place where you end up setting yourself either too many things or too many things that are too big, you then get yourself into that brain space where it's like, I am a failure. I have failed. I will never achieve any of the things. But that's not a reality. That's just because you've set it where you can't win. You've set yourself up where you're never going to win. Whereas if you set yourself up for success, your brain's going to go, yeah, we are deliverers. That's what we do around these parts. We start stuff, we finish it, we make it happen.
And I suppose you must have this a lot with your clients, but it's being really strict with yourself on what is critical or what is a must do. Because I know that sometimes I can put things in the must do list and I'm like, why? Because if that doesn't happen, no, like, and you know, an example of that, which is something that I must, so for example, I have to do my tax return.
Yep.
Do I have to do it in April? No, I don't. So if I've got 4 other things on my list, like it's also that urgency of the must do as well.
Yeah.
And I don't want to leave it because I'm not that kind of person. I don't want to leave it till January, but I don't have to do it in April. Like,
no, you still, there's a bit of time between that April and January bit. I think the thing is, right, for a lot of people, what I see happening is there will be stuff on their must do, and it will be stuff that is important. It will be stuff that is either going to move the business forward. It will be stuff that is going to create an income for them. It is stuff that is going to make their business generally easier, faster, better. What tends to happen is it goes on the must do list, but it goes on the must do list under the title of the project. Okay, so say for argument's sake, I decide I want to create a short course on something. And then the thing on my must-do list is short course title. Well, that's just ridiculous. That is entirely ridiculous. You're never going to get that done. It will never happen because you've given yourself something that has so much work to it. It includes so many different tasks. It includes tech. It includes like all these different components to it. So you're never going to get that thing done. So what people then do is like, they're like, oh yeah, I'll come back to that next week. And then the next week, and then the next week, and then the next week. And it just keeps getting pushed further and further back because you procrastinate either through some level of like sort of fear, like that you're going to do the thing and then no one's going to buy it, which all of us have all been through. Like we know what that feels like, and it is so disheartening, and you just want to cry because you're like, I can't believe I spent all this time creating this thing and nobody bought it. So that is like, fear is one of the big things. The next thing in terms of procrastination will be the tech. So the challenges around kind of like, how do I make it go together? Where do I do it? Where do I record? Like, how do I, like all of that stuff. And then we have like the actual kind of like practical deliverable bit. So those 3 things tend to be the thing that will like make you procrastinate over a must do. However, if you take your time with these things and you say to yourself, well, the must do is build the short course. This week's task is to decide on the structure of the short course. And then next week, we are going to decide where we want to put it, how we're going to do the video, all of these different things. By breaking those things down into kind of more practical deliverables, what you then don't do is you don't procrastinate over it because you're getting a little bit done at a time. You also don't waste your time and, more importantly, your mental energy bashing yourself over the head going, oh, I should have done that thing and I haven't done it. I'm terrible. I'm the worst.
You feel like
I'm
you're
a
making
failure.
progress then, don't you, as well? Because
Correct.
it's like so for example, one of my goals last year was to launch a podcast. And if I'd literally just had launch a podcast on my goal, I probably broke that down. I think it was like 47 steps of things that I needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the way my brain works, is I like ticking lots of things off. But like those
Me too.
Steps, some of them was like a 30-second task, but it just broke it down. And it felt like if I had, like, it just meant if I had a bit of a space in a day, I could go, right, I'm just going to go and tick one thing off that list, even if it wasn't on my must do. But I think also the must do thing, because there's time, like, obviously, if you like want to generate more income because you need to match the bills that you pay.
Yeah,
Then
yeah,
that's
yeah.
what you must do. But actually, we could put that on a must do because it's going to grow our business or it's going to bring us more income. But sometimes I think, a bit like going back to that conversation earlier, is like, do we need to earn more money? Because is that a must do if it's going to push us to burnout? Like,
Yeah.
and like I said, like that's not like it's never a must do, because for some people it will do. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, depending on your financial position, whatever. But I think sometimes that must do, you even need to look at it like that and go, yes, it will do this thing for the business, but does that make that, like, the business isn't going to burn to the ground, or my kids aren't going to go unfed if I don't do
Yeah, yeah.
thing as well. So I think it's just about being super honest with yourself and
What do I want?
yeah,
What do I want my life to look like? What do I want my life to feel like? Where do I want to be? What experiences do I want to provide for us? What spaces do I want to create more joy? For me, those are the important questions, because when you get those things right, what you tend to see, especially with business owners, is they're like, actually, you know what? If I'm going to be honest with myself, I wasn't really doing that because I wanted to do it or because I needed to do it. I was doing it because I saw somebody else did it and I
yeah.
thought I maybe should be doing it. However, in the context of my life and what I want my future to look like, that's not relevant.
Yeah, and I am a big fan. I think I even say it in the outro of the podcast. Actually, like we ban the word "should." Like in Bossy Socials Club or anybody that I work with, we ban the word "should."
Nah.
There is no should. It's finding what works for you, and
That's the point of running your own business. It's there to support your unique journey. And if you create a business which is the mirror image of somebody else's business, and their life and lifestyle, their hopes, dreams, values do not mirror yours, you are going to create something that you hate. And if you do that to yourself, the only thing that's going to happen is you're going to get to a point with that business where you just want to burn the lot to the ground. And
yeah,
it's not because you really want to burn the lot to the ground. It's because you created something that doesn't meet your needs and it doesn't meet your desires. It's not, there is no drive or passion from you in that thing. It's just because that person who is an expert said, do it this way. And then you did. And now you hate your life.
and what a place. You know what? I was just looking at the time, talking of time management, and thinking. And I said to you before we started recording, is because I love it. I could talk for ages on this kind of stuff, but I feel like that was like a moment. But before we do, I've got a couple of questions that I ask everybody when they come on the podcast. But
Perfect.
before I go on to that, and if there aren't any, it's absolutely fine because you've given loads of really valuable stuff already. But are there any kind of like anything you haven't said or quick fire tips that you would leave anyone with?
I suppose my quick fire tip. So other than doing that kind of the reality check and then, you know, being honest with yourself about your home context, what I would encourage people to do is test it, trial it, tinker with it. So I say that in all areas of your business, but especially when it comes to time management and planning and strategy. Take something, that advice that you've been given or something that you've seen, test it, trial it in the business, and then tinker with it so that it works best for you. It doesn't matter how somebody else is doing it. It matters how you're doing it, because you are the person who has to show up every day in your business. And so making sure that you test it, trial it, tinker it will help you to take the very best out of all of these like golden nuggets that people are offering you up and use that to your advantage, basically.
Amazing. And actually, I've said that was going to be the last question around time management, but there was one more I wanted to ask you because you suggested this as a question. And I said to you, didn't I have all these questions and then I don't ask them because we have really good conversation. But I would be really interested to hear your thoughts on this. And I know this is something that I've worked a lot on. How do you get back on track after a tough morning, for example, like with your little lady or with just something happening in life? But particularly, I know from having children, sometimes you could by 9 o'clock, you just want to go back to bed. Have you got any, like, how do you deal with that after, like, how do you get back on track after that?
So I think a couple of things. So like a tricky morning in this house is like she might wake up and then she has like a half an hour screaming fit, and it's just a full scale meltdown. You can't, there's no rhyme, there's no reason, there's no nothing. It's just, she's just gone off the deep end. And you're like, oh my God. So then you're trying to manage your own emotions to help her to like manage hers. So once she is out of the door, I normally put the kettle on, have a cup of tea, and just try and like go, oh my God, that was horrendous. I hate it here. I hate it here. So some of my, well-used coping mechanisms, it depends on the context. Sometimes I scream because I'm just like, I just have to get it out. Sometimes I do like a little stampy dance inside the front hallway. Sometimes I just swear on repeat very loudly, because I just need to like get the top part of that kind of like gone. Then I sit down and have my cup of tea. And then what I will do, because I plan my day every morning, like I plan my week at the start of the week in terms of like, what do I need to deliver? However, on one of those difficult days, I make sure that the work that I'm going to do is going to be work that I feel is aligned with the energy that I have, and work and a circumstance that is going to help to just fill my cup back up. So that might be stuff that I know that I super enjoy doing, which is planning for me. So I might be like, you know what? Today we're going to plan a thing. So I give myself the leeway in my day to just bring that energy back up, to just make myself feel a little bit less like poop, and just, give myself that bit of breathing space to just go, you know what? Today was a hard day. I am not going to make it harder for myself by giving myself 11 really tricky things to do on top of this day. Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
I love that. No, I love that. And I love the absolute honesty of that. And it's like one of the things that I've started doing is like, I won't put meetings in before 11 o'clock now, because if I need, and it's,
I don't have to, I can't, because I want to show up my very best self. And if I need to give myself time to do that, I'm going to take it.
Yeah. And I think you need to, because, it goes back to, again, of like wanting to work the school hours and feeling like then you have to be on it from like 9:15.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's just not practical, even when it hasn't been a horrendous day. But I love the honesty of, because I do that a lot, just get back. And I mean, I don't have the sort of challenges that you have around the sort of neurodiversity and that kind of thing. But
you still have 2 children.
Still have 2 children, and I've had stuff going on with them where sometimes I get back and I am just like, oh my God, why did I have kids?
What are we doing here? You're like, this has got to be some sort of a joke. It's absolutely insane.
But I love because I do that as well. I think it was on an episode of Grey's Anatomy, where they screamed it out. So they danced out or scream it out. But I remember when the second lockdown got announced and it was pouring with rain that day, and I'd had a big row with my husband that morning because tensions were high and we were going to
Everyone was fed up with each other.
But it was pouring with rain, and I left the house to go for a walk, and my husband was like, are you all right?
No.
I went down to the beach. No one else was there because it was pouring with rain. And then we have the sort of like cliff edge bit there. And I literally stood there and screamed at the top of my lungs. It made me feel so much better. And I went back soaking and calm.
Because you're like,
was like,
exactly. Because in your mind, you're like, listen, I love you. You people in this household are the loves of my life, but I swear to God, if you carry on, I am leaving.
I get the kids to do it as well, though. Like, it's somebody taught me it in like a mindfulness class. I don't think you're meant to absolutely scream off a cliff, but it's like,
listen,
you shake your hands
you gotta
down
do what you gotta do.
Well, you shake your hands down low, you shake your hands up high, and then you scream. And the kids love it because they bloody love screaming.
Of course.
I've got a video of my little girl doing it when she's about 3 years old. And I found it as a good way, like where I'm getting hit up in the morning when they're still there and I don't want to lose my proverbial they've even left the house. I'm like, I don't do it so much now, they're older. But it used to be, it's like, right, everybody stop. It's like, everybody shake your hands and scream. They used to love it. And it let me, without looking like a psychopath, just go,
exactly. Friends, this is enough. I cannot anymore. I'm like that. I'm like, listen, if you lot carry on, I've got a one-way ticket in my cart right now to Barbados. I don't need this.
So basically what I'm saying is I fully endorse screaming. So if it works for you, honestly, try it, because that day I was like, wow, this is incredible.
So much better.
Yeah. And my
School
husband
of office for me.
was so pleased when I got back because I was no longer an absolute like raving lunatic. Soaking, but not a raving
It's
lunatic.
fine. That's okay. You're fine. You're not a witch. You won't melt.
Exactly. So let me come on before we are here all day because I can't. I'm honestly loving this. Last couple of questions. What things,
Okay.
and I suppose some of this you've answered, so if you feel you've already answered, it's
Mhm.
fine. But what things help you show up in your business, and what tips would you give someone else to do the same? So I guess a bit of what we were just talking about is
Yeah, I think the thing that helps me show up in my business is really making things as simple and straightforward for myself as possible. I think a lot of the time, again, we see people doing stuff online, and I'm like, listen, simplicity is normally the thing that you need. Like, it's great that you've got this super complex, like overlaid automated system with all of these bits and like it's all whizzy and fancy and blah, blah, blah. But fundamentally, this is where you are. This is where you want to be. We need to find the fastest, easiest, most efficient route from here to here. That's what we need to be focused on, because all of the other whizzy bits, they're all great when you have a lot of like help in the back end of your business. Without it, go simple. Go simple, go high quality, because with simple and high quality, you're able to deliver a really fantastic service, but you can be super consistent with it. You don't have to then go, oh my God, this one thing is now broken in this like ginormous creation that I've created. I'm going to have to now unpick the whole lot. Just don't give yourself that level of stress.
100%. And simplicity, I actually brought into, it's one of my values for my business now because it's so underrated. Like we're so human nature to overcomplicate things when we can do it quite simply and suss it out as we go. I love that.
Yep.
I love that. Is there any advice you would go back and give yourself in the early days of running your business?
Do you know what? It's really strange, but actually, I don't think I would. And I don't say that to be like, oh, I've done all of these things. I'm so amazing. Blah blah blah. That's not it. The reality is, I think when I started my business, because of the way that the business started and kind of how it evolved, fundamentally, there are some mistakes that you have to make, because you have to prove to yourself that you've made that mistake and the whole lot has not burnt to the ground. Because a lot of us, when you come from like, especially like a super corporate place, it is inbred in you to be very risk averse. But when you become a business owner, you have to be able to take strategic risks, right? But you only do that with a level of confidence when you've done it before, you've made a mistake, you've come back from it, and you've figured out the answer. And so I don't think I would tell myself to change anything necessarily, because all of those experiences have brought me to this point, and actually in a lot of ways has given me a lot more that I can use to help clients, because now I'm like, okay, so you're in chapter 1 of this conversation. Let me tell you how chapter 1 went for me.
Do you know what that is? That's really powerful, and I really love that, because as well, sometimes it's like it goes back to the whole thing we said earlier about like, oh, I wouldn't work so much, or I wouldn't whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I hear people say all the time, not on this podcast when I've asked that question, but things like, oh, I wouldn't offer things for free, so like speaking gigs or whatever. And it's like, okay, but you doing it for free is what got you the most visibility. So like, if you're going to tell people to only charge for it,
Correct.
that's not bad advice necessarily.
It's not bad advice if you are at a point where your offering warrants it.
Yeah.
But sometimes we have to be realistic that we're not just going to walk into a £25,000 a throw speaking gig. We all have to kind of work our way up to that.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's that the advice that you'd give yourself in the early days, there's some stuff that you don't need to do as much of when you're a few years into business, but you probably do. So I think that's really powerful. Like, I really love that. And I think you're the first person that said you wouldn't go back and give yourself advice, which I love as well. Amazing. Oh, Lizzy, you've been absolutely wonderful, and I could talk to you for another couple of hours. But I don't think anyone would listen for that long. So we should
sad shame.
Yes, their loss. But can you tell people where they can find you? and anything that you can find.
Oh, okay. So you can find me at thefantasticfoundations.co.uk. So that's my website. Everything is basically on there. I've got a fair few like bits to help people. So if you are interested in like time management, then I've got a time mastery thing on there which you can grab. And that is really my favorite kind of like tips, tricks to help you with your time management, but they are all practical based. It's not just like, wake up at 5 a.m. It's not like that shenanigans. So that's there. And then also I've got, I think on there we talked about the strategic reset. So like you get to a point, you're like, oh, I've got far too much to do. I need to like cut this back. So that's on there as well. That's like a mini course. And then if you want to start planning kind of more effectively in your business, there's also a mini planner on there as well, which you can have. I am on Instagram, so that's the Fantastic Foundations. And I'm also on LinkedIn. That's just Lizzy Parsons. So yeah, you can feel free to come and connect with me, hang out in my little area of the internet. It's pretty sparkly over there, actually, is probably the best way to describe it.
I like it. It's sparkling, it's colourful, and it's very real.
Is.
It's very real, which I there needs to be more of on social media. So yeah, I highly recommend going and connecting with Lizzy.
Amazing.
Honestly, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed it. So I hope you have.
Me too. I've had a great day. I was like, when you need something to like just go, yay! This was my yay for today.
That is what we are here for. Amazing. Well, thank you for your time, and I can't wait for this episode to come out.
Me neither. So yeah, let me know, and I'm super excited to hear it.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I am truly grateful for your time and your energy today. I know that you've got a million things on your plate, and the fact that you're here investing your time into something that will help your business and your socials grow is something I am really proud of you for. Before you go though, if you love this podcast and you're a woman running a small business who wants to make social media easier and business life less lonely, I've got something for you that I want to tell you a little bit more about. The Boss Your Socials Club is here to bring you inspiration, accountability, confidence, and community. It's a place where we ban the word should because we believe in bespoke advice that will work for you, your circumstances, your life, and your business. As a member, you get a clear content plan every month, ready to use templates, and the accountability to actually show up. Plus, you'll have expert support and a community of incredible women who get it and who want to cheer you on and support you in your business journey. And we all need a bit of that. Think of it like having a teeny tiny social media marketing expert in your pocket, giving you the knowledge and the assurance when it comes to posting great, engaging content on your social media platforms and showing up in a way that grows your business without the overwhelm and with a community of women cheering you on. Whether you're just getting started or looking to take your social media to the next level, Boss Your Socials Club has everything you need. You can join from just £24 a month or save with an annual membership, which is £240 for the year, so you get 2 months free. Thank you again for being here today, and I can't wait to catch you in the next episode. Until then, keep showing up, and please always remember, realising that you're not actually meant to do this stuff alone is the first step to making it easier. So I'll see you next time.